What if the girl sent us a joke was the only one strong enough to stay? The wagon rattled over loose stones as the wind pushed hard against the canvas flaps. Red dust twisted behind them like a storm chasing its own shadow. Nali held her shawl tight to her chest. Her fingers were white from gripping too hard, and her heart felt louder than the horse hooves that beat across the dry ground. She was not supposed to be here. Not her. Her father's voice still echoed in her mind like broken thunder. He asked for Taya. But you're the same blood, aren't you? If she's got your blood, she'll do just fine. He did not even look at her when he said it. He only laughed, pushed her toward the wagon, and slammed the gate shut behind her. To him, she was a problem, not a daughter. Something to be delivered, not loved. The driver had not spoken once during the long ride, and Nali did not ask anything. Her voice had folded into silence somewhere between goodbye and good riddance. Dust Canyon rose slowly ahead of them, carved deep by old winds and older stories. The jagged ridges looked like broken teeth. The land felt alive and watching. Then she saw it, a wooden fence, a broad shadow of a barn, and a man standing at the gate with the sun behind him, Thomas Greywolf. The rancher who had asked her father for a wife. But not her. The wagon stopped. Nali climbed down slowly, careful not to stumble. The wind slapped her face as if it wanted to shove her back into the wagon. Thomas stood tall, with his arms crossed and his jaw tight. His eyes scanned past her, searching behind the wagon. He was looking for Taya. "This is not the girl I agreed to marry," he said. His voice was dry, cracked by sun and disappointment. The driver only shrugged. Her father said, "This one's just as good." Nali kept her head down. She did not speak, she did not need to. Her entire body said the truth she already knew. "I'm not what you wanted." Thomas looked at the horizon where the wagon disappeared, then at her again. Something sharp moved in his eyes. Anger, maybe betrayal. But he did not send her back. "Fine," he muttered. "You'll do for now." Quote. He turned without another word. Inside the house was colder than the night air. The walls were bare, the kitchen smelled like burnt wood, and the silence felt heavy. Thomas poured himself a drink but did not offer her one. "Your room is upstairs. Last door on the left," he said. "Don't touch what's not yours. Don't ask questions. Don't expect anything." She simply nodded. Her room was small, a bed, a cracked window, a dresser that leaned to one side. She sat on the mattress and stared at the wall. This did not feel like a new home. It felt like exile. She did not cry. Tears were for people who believed someone cared. She had long learned not to. That night she heard coyotes calling outside and Thomas's steady footsteps pacing the floor below. He was a man who had been promised gold but received gravel. And she was the gravel. Her father's words echoed again. "She'll do just fine." Her throat tightened. No one had ever chosen her, not once. But somewhere in the dark, something small and fierce woke up inside her. "If this is a joke, I'll outlive the laugh." When morning came, the sun was cruel. Thomas was already outside holding a shovel. He didn't look at her. "You'll earn your place," he said. She took the shovel even though her palms were still sore from the long ride. He pointed to a trench near the barn. "Dig, then feed the animals. Then haul water." She nodded once and started. By midday her hands were burning. By evening her arms trembled. Dust stuck to her sweat. Her dress clung to her back. But she kept going. Thomas watched her from a distance, eyes sharp but quiet. Once she caught him looking longer than before, but he turned away fast. That night she crawled into bed with aching bones but a stubborn heart. The next morning was colder. Her blisters had split open. Still she worked. Still she stayed silent. The ranch hands whispered behind her back. "She'll quit by next week. Bet her father is glad to be rid of her." Those words stung the way old wounds always stung, but Nali did not break. She saved her tears for when the sun went down, and even then she let only a few fall. "If the wind can't carry me off," she whispered in the dark, "neither can their words." The next dawn, she stepped outside and saw someone watching her from the fence line. A young man. Lean, quiet, steady. He held a bundle of wood beside him and a small carving knife in his hand. His eyes followed her every move. He lifted a half-shaped hawk carving and gave her the smallest nod. It wasn't greeting, it was recognition. She nodded back. By the time she finished collecting eggs, he was gone, but the firewood had been moved closer to the porch. Later that week, an old woman arrived at the ranch gate. Her braids were silver, her coat patched, her eyes sharp. Maggie Two Hearts. "You're tougher than you look," she said. Nali did not know how to answer. Maggie placed something in her hand, a wolf claw pendant on a thin leather string. "Storm's coming," the old woman said. "Wear this. Remember what you are. A lone wolf ain't weak. She just has no time for the pack." It was the first gift anyone had given Nali in years. That night she held the pendant tight and stared at the moon rising over Dust Canyon. Something was changing. But she did not yet know that the storm Maggie warned about was already rolling toward the ranch, wrapped in silk, perfume, and a perfect smile. Taya was coming. And everything Nali had quietly built was about to be tested. What happens when the girl they wanted comes back and the girl they threw away refuses to disappear? The second morning came colder than any before. The wind cut through Nali's thin sleeves and her blistered hands throbbed, but she didn't stop. She carried the feed, tied the ropes, hauled water from the deeper well. Every chore Thomas gave her she did without complaint. Thomas didn't say much. Only nodded at her once in the morning, then walked off into the fields like the land claimed more of him than the walls of his home did. But someone else was watching her. The quiet young man from the fence, Elis Redbird, showed up again at dawn. He sat near the woodpile, carving something small in his hands. When Nali passed him, he raised a half-finished hawk in greeting. She nodded back, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. That afternoon, Maggie Two Hearts returned with medicine for a sick goat. She walked into the kitchen like she owned the place and gave Nali a long look. "You didn't break," she said. "Didn't plan to," Nali replied softly. "Good. The desert doesn't like the weak." Later that day, when Thomas tried to corral the goats, they scattered in wild panic. Duke, the ranch hand, cursed under his breath. Damn thing's got more attitude than sense. Thomas tried to rope one, but it bolted. After 3 failed tries, he threw the rope to the ground in frustration. But Nali saw the fear in the goats' eyes. So she did something no one expected. She sat down in the dirt with a pan of oats and hummed. Low, soft, steady. The smallest goat came first. Then another. Even the mean one edged close. By sundown, all 6 were inside the corral. Nali dusted off her skirt and locked the gate. When she walked past Thomas, he didn't speak, but his eyes followed her in a way they hadn't before. That night she found an extra blanket folded on her bed. He noticed. The next morning, Elis returned again, leaving a small carving on the porch. This time a hawk, fully shaped, wings stretched wide. She picked it up gently, touched the carved feathers, and felt something shift inside her. Someone saw her. Someone valued her. Later that day, she was sweeping the barn when Thomas glanced her way. He held a saddlebag in his hand, worn but strong. "You'll need this," he said. "For what?" she asked. His jaw tightened. "For whatever you decide to carry." It was the first thing he gave her that wasn't an order. But the peace didn't last. Because one afternoon, as the sun hung low and the dust rose in soft shadows, a wagon rolled toward the ranch. Not a rough farm wagon. A painted, polished one, with silk curtains and brass hinges that sparkled in the light. It looked like it belonged in a city ballroom, not Dust Canyon. The wagon stopped. The door opened. Taya stepped down. She looked untouched by dust or work or hard days. Golden hair curled, dress fitted and clean, perfume drifting on the dry wind. She walked toward Thomas like she'd never left him behind. "There you are," she said, smiling wide. "Cade, I'm here." Nali froze. Cade. No one called him that anymore. Not here. Not in this life. Thomas stiffened. His eyes flicked to Nali, then back to Taya. Her smile sharpened when she noticed Nali standing in the barn doorway. "Oh," Taya said lightly, "you're still here." Nali didn't speak. Taya stepped closer to Thomas, her voice sweet as honey. "You never wanted her. You wanted me." The words cut through the yard like a knife. Nali felt her heart drop, but her face stayed still. She didn't look at Thomas. She simply turned and walked toward the house, each step steady, even though her chest felt like it was shaking inside. That night, she didn't sleep. In the dark upstairs room, she packed a small bag. Only a shawl, a little dried meat, and the hawk carving. She left the wolf claw pendant on the nightstand. She didn't deserve it, she told herself. She wasn't a lone wolf. She was just alone. In the morning, she stepped outside. Taya was already spinning in her lace dress, laughing at something Thomas said. His face was unreadable. Closed. It hurt more than Nali expected. She walked past them quietly and headed toward the canyon. She didn't take a horse. She didn't take anything more than she needed. She had learned to survive on less. The land was silent around her, the sky wide, the wind heavy. She walked for hours until she reached the shallow riverbed near the cliffs. A small cry broke the silence. A calf was tangled in thorn bushes, trapped and scared. Nali didn't think. She dropped her bag and slid down the gully. The rocks scraped her arms, branches scratched her legs, but she kept going. "Easy, baby," she whispered. "I've got you." The wind began to whip harder, dust swirling low across the ground. A storm was building fast. The sky turned brown, moving toward them like a wall. She wrapped her shawl around the calf and pulled hard, inch by inch. The wind hit her face. Sand stung her eyes. She shielded the calf with her body. A shadow moved behind her. Arms grabbed the calf from the other side. Thomas! His coat whipped in the wind, his face set hard, his breath fast. He didn't say anything. He just lifted with her. They stumbled together up the bank, fighting the sand and wind. They reached the barn just as the storm crashed into the canyon walls. They pushed inside, panting, dust-covered, shaking. The calf calmed under blankets. Nali leaned against a beam, chest heaving. Thomas stood close, his hand braced near her shoulder, his eyes on her. "You could have been hurt," he said. "But I wasn't," she answered. Their eyes held. The storm raged, but the barn felt still, quiet, charged. Thomas stepped closer. Then he slowly draped his coat around her shoulders. Gently, carefully. She couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. He didn't speak either. But the silence between them wasn't distance. It was something else. Something waking. Something neither of them could ignore anymore. What if the girl they tried to throw away became the only one the land refused to let go? The morning after the storm, Dust Canyon felt different. Softer, warmer. The kind of stillness that came only after something big had shifted in the air. Nali stepped out onto the porch, with the sunrise brushing the sky, Thomas's coat still warm on her shoulders from the night before. She folded it carefully and left it at the foot of his door. She did not need to keep pieces of him to feel steady anymore. When she walked into the kitchen, Thomas was already there. The room smelled like strong coffee, something rich and grounding. He poured a cup and pushed it toward her without looking up. She accepted it without a word. They didn't need many words anymore. Later that morning, they worked side by side fixing the south fence. Thomas held the post steady, while Nali looped the wire and tied it tight. When their fingers brushed, they didn't pull away, not this time. "You sleep all right?" he asked. "Better than ever," she said. He looked at her in a way that felt heavier than the words he didn't say. Things changed slowly after that, soft but certain. Nali hummed while she worked. Thomas listened without pretending he wasn't listening. At night, they sat on the porch together with the lantern glowing warm between them. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. But the silence felt full, not empty. Maggie Twoheart showed up almost daily, bringing herbs, stories, and warnings Nali didn't fully understand yet. The storm cleared, Maggie said one evening. But storms don't clean up the mess. Be ready, girl. Nali nodded, though she didn't know what was coming. She would know soon. 3 days after the storm, as the sky turned orange over the canyon, Taya walked into the barn where Nali was brushing down a horse. "You think he's changing for you?" Taya asked, her voice sweet with poison. Nali kept brushing. "Men don't change," Taya said softly. "They just get bored." Nali's hands trembled, but she didn't give Taya the satisfaction of looking at her. She took a steady breath and kept brushing the horse's side. "Tell yourself whatever you want," Nali said quietly. Taya stepped back with a tight smile and left. But her words lingered like smoke. That night, the wind was gentle. Thomas sat beside Nali on the back steps, both looking at the stars stretching across the sky. "You're good with animals," he said. "They don't expect lies," she replied. He nodded. "I owe you honesty," he said, "even if it's late." Nali waited. "I wasn't ready when she came back," he said. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "I owe you the truth," he replied. When she finally met his eyes, he didn't look away. The following days felt like slow blooming. Thomas handed her tools before she asked. Nali reached for tasks without waiting for permission. They moved around each other like two people who had finally begun to walk the same direction. But soft things can break fast. One afternoon, as the sun set gold behind the cliffs, Taya walked into the house holding a sealed letter. "This came for you," she said, waving it carelessly. "From Santa Fe." Thomas froze. Nali watched his face drop tight. Taya smiled, pleased with the crack she saw forming in him. She walked away humming. The letter sat on the mantel for 2 days. Unopened. Heavy like a stone weighing down the room. Finally, Maggie visited the ranch again. "It isn't finished," she warned Nali. "Storms don't end." "They circle?" Nali didn't know if she meant the letter, Taya, or something else entirely. That night, Thomas found Nali outside, tightening a gate latch with a hammer. "You don't have to do that now," he said. "Yes, I do," she replied. Thomas watched her for a moment, then said quietly, "You think that letter is about her?" "It doesn't matter," Nali said. "It's your past." "But you're my present," he said, voice low. "I just don't know how to walk away from someone I once promised everything to." Nali set the hammer down slowly. "This isn't about promises," she said. "It's about who stays." He didn't argue, he couldn't. A day later, they rode together to the Moonfire Gathering, the only night of the year when the entire canyon came together. Fires glowed. Drums beat low. Children ran laughing through the dust, while elders prayed beneath woven blankets. Nali wore her old shawl. Simple. Real. Hers. Taya stepped out in a silver dress that sparkled under lantern light. People stared, some in awe, some with judgment. Maggie stood at the center of the fire circle. "Tonight is for the ones who build," she said, "not the ones who boast." She turned to Thomas. "Greywolf," she said, "what are you building?" Everything fell silent. Thomas stepped forward slowly. He looked at Taya first, then at Nali, then at the firelight flickering between them. "I once asked for something I thought I wanted," he said. "And when it didn't come, I thought I'd been cheated." The crowd held its breath. "I never asked for her," he said, eyes on Nali. Nali's heart trembled. "But she's the one I want, the one I choose." A single drum struck hard. Whispers rippled through the circle. Taya's face didn't break, it cracked. Later, she confronted Thomas near the canyon edge. "You'll regret this," she snapped. "She's beneath you." "No," he said. "She's stronger than me." Taya slapped him and stormed away. The canyon swallowed her like the wind swallowed smoke. Back at the ranch, everything changed quietly. Thomas poured coffee every morning without looking confused about it. Nali stitched his shirts without second-guessing her place. They worked side by side. They shared small smiles. One sunset, while standing in the barn aisle, Thomas finally pulled a ring from his coat pocket. Simple. Juniper carved. Steady. He didn't kneel. He didn't ask. He offered. She accepted. They married under the cottonwood tree, with Maggie standing as witness and Ellis carving their rings. No lace, no crowd. Just land, wind, and truth. Life wasn't easy, but they built it anyway. Then one morning, a wagon rolled up from the west. Ben Natani stepped down, Nali's father. He looked at her like he didn't recognize the woman standing before him. "You've changed," he said. "No," she replied. "I just stopped apologizing." He lowered his head. "I came to set things right." "You can't," she said. "What's done is done." He looked down. "I threw you away." She nodded once. "Yes, you did." His voice cracked. "But I see you now." She didn't forgive him that day, but she nodded anyway, because seeing was a start. When she returned to the porch, Thomas asked, "You all right?" "Not yet," she said, "but close." "That's enough," he replied. Years later, as the sun set red over the canyon, Thomas wrapped his arm around her. "You were never a mistake," he said softly. "Not to me. Not to this place." "I know," she whispered, because she wasn't the girl sent as a joke anymore. She was the woman who stayed, the woman he chose. The legacy Dust Canyon would never forget.